transport people from Mombasa to Nairobi, about 1,200 people. Quite an interesting move, considering that traffic has been rising from Mombasa to Nairobi. Could be business delegates, it could be, people looking at just traveling for pleasure, and of course, boosting that local tourism. Going to Mombasa via plane, using the budget carriers, could be as low as 3,200 per trip going, but this one it's quite cheap, it's quite flexible, and of course the timing also, the timing that it takes for you to get from Mombasa all the way to Nairobi has been reduced. When you use road, it takes about 8 hours, but now with the SGR passenger train, you're looking at 4.5 hours. Quite affordable. Now, of course, SGR project has had its major headwinds. We're talking about government, talking about actually the environmental stakeholders were concerned the fact that the line will cut across through Savo, making the animals movement from that specific park quite difficult. But today the Chinese delegates that were here even had a swipe in relation to that, and they made a joke and say that the bridges that were built to sort of counter that are so big that even the giraffes can pass without even bending. Just goes to show you the sort of confidence that they have in relation to the construction work that has been carried out in relation to their project. Now, again, the Chinese government are the key. Chinese government, through their contractors, are the major contractors of the projects. They were involved in building the project from the scratch. They funded the project 90%, and 10% was funded by the Kenyan government. They are now the ones. They're now the ones, of course, who are here. Majority of them are here, and the representative of His Excellency Chinese President Xi Jinping actually say that the representative that was sent here actually say that Kenya is very important in relation to trade, in relation to investments that Africa has. That Chinese government has with Africa, saying that this project, along with the SGR, the standard gauge railway project in Kenya, as long as the railway project in Ethiopia and Djibouti, as well as further down in Nigeria and Kaduna, where there's also another railway that was built, all together in Africa, it's set to make goods cheaper for the Chinese, as well as even for other countries looking at transporting commodities in the country. Now, SGR, of course, had its fair share of, other concerns. There were other stakeholders that were a bit worried in terms of the cost. Others alluded to the fact that the cost of the project was highly inflated, saying that, it was a bit too expensive, and that, more should have been done in terms of looking at the viability of the project vis-a-vis the cost. This was some of the challenges that, His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta said they will continue to face. And of course, they're not saying that now that the project is done, the challenges are over. He said that the challenges are going to be there, but the solutions are also there. He was very patriotic, saying this is a project for the Mwananchi, and we should be very proud of it. Now, the project also faced another kind of headwind, which was quite interesting, because it was being compared to other projects like the Ethiopian Railway, which is, yes, a standard gauge railway, but there are quite some attributes that make it a bit different. But, people would argue, some key stakeholders were arguing the fact that, the Ethiopian government spent a lot of money compared to the Kenyan government, and the rail was shorter. These were just some of the concerns that were popping out in relation to the standard gauge railway while it was still under construction. But the Kenyan government, as well as the contractors, including the China Road and Bridge Corporation, were quick to say that it's like comparing apples and oranges, saying that the terrain in Kenya is very different, as well as the terrain, in Ethiopia. For example, in Kenya, they had to part with a lot in terms of compensation, land compensation. Now, in Ethiopia, majority of the land, majority of the resources are really owned by the government, compared to, in Kenya, whereby they had to consult environmentalists, they had to consult the owners of the land. They're saying all these things require money and they are quite costly. Now, earlier on, as I said, the Chinese government has funded the project by, about 90% funded by the Chinese government. And the Chinese government today, when they were giving their commentary, they say that we've created quite a number of jobs in terms of, giving the technical know-how to the Kenyans, to the locals who are here, giving them jobs during the construction phase, as well as transferring skills because Chinese has built quite a number of projects in their country, China, as well as neighboring countries in Asia, as well as Africa, and even in Europe. They're saying they're using the same technical know-how that they've done other projects with to also sort of transfer it to the Kenyan market. Essentially, today is a big day. In a couple of minutes, the President, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, will be flagging off the very first standard gauge railway passenger train. And he gave a speech earlier on saying that the project is for the people. The project is, ready and good to go, considering that it was supposed to be completed in a time span of 5 years, but it was completed in 2.5 years, signaling the fact that the government was ready and willing to finish the project so that the common mwananchi, so that the business stakeholders can benefit from the project as a whole. Of course, this has faced some criticism from the opposition, also from other stakeholders, arguing the fact that the project finished early doesn't necessarily mean that it's a quality project. And these were some of the things that the president actually noted and said that, we did face some criticism, we did face some commentary against our project, they did say this and this, but at the end of it all, it's what exactly, how will it help the typical mwananchi? How will the mwananchi benefit from the project? Yeah, so in just a couple of minutes, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, as you can see, the people are trying to witness, trying to make their way, eagerly waiting. Some of them have like most of us, we've never really, been in this new train, but others are really quite excited, Others know the older train, the Lunatic Express, the one that was quite different. This one is more modernized, this one is spacious, this one has that international feel, considering that the Chinese were the people behind the construction works. Getting some live pictures, as you can see there, waiting. The president is set to come up any minute and he'll flag off the very first launched. It's about 192 years ago. Very, very quite amusing, you might say. The biggest project that was launched about 122 years ago was the Lunatic Express. And the president said that the train was heading nowhere, but now with what he terms as a clear-cut plan that says that one of the trains is the cargo and the other one is a passenger train. There's somewhat some direction in relation to the railway system in Kenya, and somehow saying that this is going forward, this will be a game changer. Going forward, this will have some set of benefits, including job creation, including make it easier for people to send their goods from the port city of Mombasa all the way to Nairobi, and also to landlocked countries like Uganda and Rwanda, as well as interconnecting, making intra-Africa trade, making it easier to ship goods across African countries, and hence increase the production process within Africa instead of depending from imports coming from the developed world. Of course, the standard gauge railway is set to be flagged off by the president in a couple of minutes. It is a big deal. It is the biggest project that has been launched in quite a while. Biggest project that is making headlines now in Eastern and Central Africa. Quite a big deal, and everybody is excited. The president himself is quite thrilled. He spoke a few minutes ago, dressed in a white shirt that has the colors of the flag. Very patriotic, very excited. Even did a jig at some point, with the dancers that were singing all the patriotic songs, kind of showing how excited they was and saying this project is for the common mwananchi. The president did highlight quite a number of things. Of course, the key main takeaway is the fact that people who were caught and taken to court in regard to vandalism, somehow, trying to sabotage the project, will, of course, face, there's a possibility that they could be hanged. Now, quite an aggressive, stunt that the president over there talks about. And also he said that the passengers are allowed to enjoy the affordable fares, saying that the mwananchi should not pay more than 700 shillings for the ride from Mombasa to Nairobi, because he says the project belongs to the mwananchi. So it is quite a day, a lot of activity, an array of activity. The president is set to flag off the SGR train in a couple of minutes. as well as, join inside actually his first train ride, and he'll be joined by, His Excellency the First Lady Mamangina, and His Excellency First Lady, not Mamangina, but actually Elizabeth, Mrs. Kenyatta. Quite an interesting affair, the big day, quite exciting, quite thrilling, quite a number of dignitaries, from diplomats, from international guests, local visitors as well, government stakeholders, quite a number of people in the building, all of them to witness the very first flag off of the standard gauge railway of the passenger train.
They might know about you, yeah. Love isn't the best place to find love, but the bar is where I go. Me and my friends at the table doing shots, drinking fast, and then we talk slow. Fire, baby. Come over and start up a conversation with just me, and trust me, I'll give it a chance. Now take my hand, stop, find the man on the jukebox, and then we start to dance. And I'm singing like, your love was handmade for somebody like me. Come on now, follow my lead. I may be crazy, don't mind me. Say, boy, let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. Come on now, follow my lead. Come on now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a nightmare car. Although my heart is falling slow.
Well, a very interesting and historic moment right there, coming to you live from Mombasa. The President Uhuru Kenyatta has officially launched or commissioned the SGR passenger train and is due to depart from Mombasa anytime. We did experience a very interesting speech from the President, very interesting announcements coming through. He mentioned that the passenger train will not, for the ordinary or the economy class, if you may, will not be allowed to charge more than 700 shillings. And therefore, if you have 700 shillings or less, depending on how the prices are going to be set, you'll be able to board the SGR train from Mombasa to Nairobi. And again, the issue about vandalism of the railway line has just become one, in fact, the most expensive scene in Kenya, because the President has said he is going to commission the death penalty for anyone that is going to be found culpable of any form of destruction. And we're talking about the president's speech, which he said that amounts to economic sabotage. And therefore, this comes on the back of the recent vandalism that happened in Madaraka just a couple of days ago before the official launch. And therefore, that is the most stern warning, most aggressive statement, I must say, from the president over his term of office so far. We have also been able to gather information that relates to the fact that the Ministry of Transport has now been directed to ensure there is a new tarmac road from the city of Mombasa connecting to the Mombasa terminus, which is in Miritini, to enable ease of PSV movement or public transport. And there will be the construction of a new stage, that is the bus terminus, that will allow the drop-off points at the SGR station in Miritini. We will also be having, yesterday we did witness the commissioning of the cargo of freight SGR train, which took off yesterday, not really took off, but set off from Mombasa to Nairobi and arrived shortly after midnight. We have also been informed that the Syokimau area, where there is the Nairobi terminus, for the time being is going to be the area where you will be able to disembark. We will also try to gather that information in the course of this broadcast, live broadcast, on how government intends to dispatch those who come from Mombasa to Nairobi, if Syokimau is going to be the final stage, or if there will be an alternative route in terms of transportation, if you will be connected to the current Kenya Railway services trains, that is that move from Syokimau to Nairobi's Nairobi's CBD at the railway station. However, for the time being, the last point where you expected to disembark from Miritini is the Nairobi terminus that is currently at Mlolongo area, that is specifically Syokimau, not very far from the current Kenya Railway station in Syokimau. And also very important to note that the new road that connects passengers or public service vehicles will be built immediately. That is according to the president, and therefore we expect there will be some ongoing works that will begin in a couple of weeks to ensure that this is sorted out. We also would like to inform you that the president has not yet left Mombasa, that is Miritini, and as you can see on your screen, we have the preparations just before departure that are ongoing, and we'll be keeping you informed in as far as that goes. I also want to introduce to us live in studio, she has just joined me. Her name is Lucy Mushoki. Lucy is currently the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Agribusiness and Agro-Industry Alliance, and also the Chair of the National Chamber of Commerce in charge of the agricultural sector. She is also a Director of the Medium and Small Enterprises Authority, that is MSEA, and she will be putting matters into perspective for us in as far as the economic impact of the SGR train, and particularly in as far as the agricultural sector is concerned. We have heard about the movement of goods, particularly from the port city of Mombasa to Nairobi, or from upcountry to Mombasa for purposes of export. We are looking at farm produce and so many other products that she will be talking to us about, and how this is going to aid in as far as the economic impact is concerned. I just want to bring you to the discussion, Lucy. Probably from where you sit, what does the SGR mean?
First and foremost, let me first thank you for inviting me here today. This day is a very important day, historical. As they have said, it's Madaraka Express.
Yes.
So indeed, we are seeing history being made. I want to take this opportunity first to recognize the government of coalition, who in 2008 endorsed the development of this SGR. And I'm so happy that the Jubilee government has also taken up and completed this milestone. The thing is, as the Chinese always say, when you want to do many miles, you start with a step. This is the first step towards the industrialization of this country. Indeed, this is a huge milestone. I must say that the reason why Africa and Kenya, as of today, we continue importing food despite having many and a lot of chunk of land is because of infrastructure, infrastructure, infrastructure. If we understand how important this milestone is to us, we should all embrace it. This is our railway. This is our important milestone as a country today. And I'm so glad that it happened on the day we are going to celebrate our Madaraka. So what does that mean? Is the time we are liberalizing ourselves in terms of business. The thing is, when you look at the Kenya Industrialization Transformation Program, which was launched by the Ministry of Industrialization, they have clearly indicated how the small businesses, which I represent, I don't represent the big businesses, I salute them, but we are going to transform this country through the support of our small businesses. In the Kenya Industrial Transformation Program, they have clearly indicated how they are going to support the many businesses along the SGR. They are going to have the special economic zones, which are clearly targeted in supporting our SMEs under the special economic zone with special and targeted crops. For instance, if I think about Voi today, I don't know why we are not talking about what is happening in Voi, but if you go to Voi today, you're going to see something happening. And that's what we are expecting. There's going to be foods, you'll be selling the foods to the tourists, and on top of that, now we stop the many food losses that we have been experiencing due to lack of transportation. The transport indeed has been very, very expensive. And this is the time to start looking at how do we support this infrastructure, which has led to more, among other things, more than 50% food loss. You can imagine our many SMEs, how strapped they have been in this. I mean, if I talk of the mango, I don't know how many people know that Kenya has the best mango in the world. Our mango has a yield of 3 times that of Mexico. However, how much mangoes are we selling out there? How much mango are we packaging? Why are we unable? It starts first with the infrastructure. So indeed, I see this in a bigger way. It is a milestone, a big one for us in the agricultural sector.
Well, right there, if you can see on your screen, we can see the First Lady Margaret Kenyatta and, of course, President Kenyatta by the window of the SGR train. The President has already boarded the train and is about to depart from Mombasa. He will be experiencing the maiden train journey from Mombasa. We are trying to get you the pictures from within, very interesting. And therefore, this is going to be a very interesting moment for Kenya. We also have air patrols right there by the Kenya Defense Forces, which is officially also the aircraft that ensures presidential security in the air. We can see right there the citizens of the great nation of Kenya moving towards the SGR train to witness this historic moment. The Deputy President, William Ruto, mentioned earlier in the day that this is a very special day for the country, Kenya, and indeed a historic moment to witness something that hardly anyone alive today witnessed when the Lunatic Express was first launched in Kenya. And therefore, it's going to probably take another century before we going to experience any sort of action in as far as the train is concerned in Kenya. But a very interesting concept right there. The First Lady there, very enthusiastic. You can read from the pictures there the president is quite elated by the happenings. The deputy president also right there having a conversation. The train has not yet left the Mombasa terminus, which is in Meritini, but will be leaving in a short while, and we'll be giving you those pictures live. Our camera crew are on standby and are on ground. I also want to inform you that we'll be tracking the SGR train as it moves from Mombasa to Nairobi. We have teams lined up in most of all the important stations. We have Mercy Milanoy that will shortly be giving us details from the station in Voi. We have Faisal Ahmed who is stationed at the Mtito Andei station, and we also have Dan Kaburu that will be receiving the SGR train in Athi River, and also that is Sarah Adam. And finally at the Nairobi terminus, Chemtai Goin will also be on standby, and therefore you don't want to miss any part of this important event for this nation. We'll bring to you these images live as they happen, and therefore keep tuned to K24. Therefore, if I may just take you back to what to expect in as far as the standard gauge railway is concerned. Just a few statistics. Currently, before the SGR, we had trains moving at a speed of 40 kilometers per hour, and that will take close to a day, and I'm talking about 20 to 24 hours a day. However, this train that you are seeing on your screen right now will be moving at an average speed of 120 kilometers per hour, and the express train is expected to take at least 4.5 hours from Mombasa to Nairobi. But due to the stopovers that we expect the president to have along the way, and in all the stations, we're probably going to have the journey take close to 6 hours. We also want to acknowledge the fact that during yesterday's commissioning of the cargo, that is the freight train, we will see at least 50% of goods that are transported on the road now moved to the rail. Currently, we're experiencing 95% of transportation of goods by road. We also have at least 80% of carbon emissions on the road because of the numerous trucks that we experience every day. But this is going to be cut by half, and we're talking about an average of 40% reduction in carbon emissions in as far as the transportation is concerned. We also have at least 1.6 million tons of goods moved annually currently. However, with the SGR, we will experience an overshoot of this to about 22 million tons that is going to be moved annually. We have less container loading capacity, and we're talking about 1,000 tons per train currently. That is in the Lunatic Express. However, in the SGR, we expect more container loading capacity to about 4,000 tons per train, and that is per trip. We will be experiencing 2 trains moving in the day from Mombasa to Nairobi, and another 2 in the evening. Therefore, we have 4 trips in the day. We have also a high cost of business due to the transit time currently, but that is also going to be cut by half. The train has now started its journey, now moving at a very snail pace, probably just to capture the moment and to allow the camera crew on standby to capture the moment. The president is now departing the Meritini terminus in Mombasa, and he is now headed to the next stop, will be in Mariakani. We have Maya Hayakawa in Mariakani, and she will probably be giving us latest updates live, so you don't want to miss that, and therefore we expect you to be on standby. And I'm sure that will take less than 30 minutes from Meritini because of the distance between that area and Mombasa. We have the SGR that is now in transit or on transit. That is the train that is carrying the President of the Republic of Kenya, that is Uhuru Kenyatta, and his deputy William Ruto, and of course the First Lady that we saw. And very interesting moment right there We can all see the branded colors, the Kenyan flag there, going to show the pride of Kenya. That is the Madaraka Express that has just taken off. And that is the Madaraka Express taking off from the Mombasa terminus, that is specifically in Miritini, I beg your pardon. The next stop is going to be in Mariakani in not more than 30 minutes from now, and we will keep you posted. That is a very interesting concept. And I was just mentioning just before we experienced the taking off of the train that there have been considerably high unemployment levels in the country, estimated at about 17.3%, statistics from the Kenya Vision 2030 Delivery Board. However, it is expected under the new SGR regime, if I may call it that way, there will be a creation of approximately 30,000 jobs during construction, and also to be able to create thousands of job opportunities, that is employment opportunities during the operation stage. We have already seen advertisements for applications for jobs for technical people who want to work with the SGR that is currently managed by the Kenyan and Chinese government that have been working hand in hand in its construction. We can see the air patrols right there, and also the train that has just departed Miritini and now headed for Mariakani. And we will also be experiencing the air patrols all the way from Mombasa to Nairobi due to the fact that we have the head of state that is now on transit, and it is the duty of the Kenya Defense Forces to secure the president and ensure that there is sufficient protection of the head of state. He is the head of state of Kenya, and therefore no chances can be taken. We will be giving you details as the train makes any stopover, and particularly all stopovers. We would like to also be able to get back to you. Lucy, you had mentioned about the economic impact, and you're specifically talking to us about the agricultural sector. Let's talk about how much you would estimate today you spend as an industry to move goods from up country, particularly Nairobi to Mombasa by road, and by how much you expect this to go down under the SGR transportation system.
Well, first and foremost, as I mentioned earlier, this is great news for the agri sector. And as I mentioned earlier on, it is really a big deal. It's not something small. They're telling us, and we can see from facts, the costs are going to be halved. So what does that mean? The cost for transporting our agricultural produce is going to be half. First and foremost, and the biggest thing I want to state here first and foremost, is that we have been looking at how can we ensure that we finish our products, we add value. So we are talking of selling goods that are finished, not just selling our raw materials like we have done before. I don't know whether you're aware, we are importing food worth 5 billion today in this country, whereas we are importing 17 billion worth of food. So most of that is because of the transportation. Because whenever I go around looking at the farms and the farmers, what they are doing, you'll be so surprised. They're putting a lot of effort. Despite the difficulties in the kind of farming that they are practicing, one thing I must say is that they are doing their best. However, they are unable to transport these goods because of the costs associated with that. You know, the other day I visited Nyandarua, and I saw they have invested a lot in aquaculture. A lot of their food is, a lot of this fish is rotting. In the evening, you see the farmers are very desperate. They're looking at who to buy the fish from. And the good news is that this SGR will be passing through the Nyandarua area. So I'm really looking at this blue economy. And when I think about our Kisumu, our Nyanza, importing fish from China, that's a long story for another day. But you can imagine if we can be able to take this fish to our friends and our citizens in Kisumu, as opposed to importing fish. I mean, there's so much trade that is going to be between different counties due to this transportation. And definitely, to me, I'm unable right now to quantify how much transportation is being done, because there's a lot of non-tariff barriers. There's a lot of transportation which not many people are able to record. A lot of irregular and illegit transportation of different food. And don't forget, with our governors adding the cess, it has not been easy. So there's been chenga like this. So you can't be really very clear how much food are we transporting and exchanging.
Well, just before we continue with this discussion, I understand Mercy Milanoi is on standby, and Mercy is coming to us live from Voi. And Mercy, if you can hear me, I just want you to bring us to speed with the expectations of the citizens right there, the Wananchi. How is the mood like? Mercy, if you can hear me.
Thank you, Mujibo. There's a lot of celebrations here in Voi, and of course, as we understand, the train has just left Mombasa and it's now coming towards us. And a lot of Kenyans who are here, I'm expecting the president, of course, to hear from him, and of course to officially have this station opened. And with me here are a few Kenyans who have been able to pull aside, who will also share with us the expectation. Unaweza tueleza jina lako?
Jina langu naitwa Mary Wanjiko Mbogwa. Na mimi kwetu nimetoka Kajiado, Ngong, na nilikuja huku zamani sana, miaka ya 70. Nilikuja hapa mwaka wa 78. Kwa hivyo nimeishi hapa, nimelelea watoto wangu hapa, wamesomea hapa. Nimekuwa kwa biashara, niko kwa biashara ya mining, na tena niko biashara ya hoteli.
Unaweza tueleza venye sasa mambo yamebadilika, sasa venye tuko na reli ya kisasa?
Kwa kweli mambo imebadilika sana hapa kaunti hii, hata na nchi mzima, kwa sababu zamani tulitembelea kwa ile train mzee, ndiye tulizoea, na kufikia sasa kuna mabadiliko mengi sana ambaye tunaona imefanyika katika hii serikali iko kwa wakati huu. Kwa sababu kitu kama hii ilikuwa ni kama ndoto kwa mwananchi, lakini tumeona ni ukweli na umefanyika, na tumefurahia sana. Kuna mabadiliko makubwa sana.
Asante sana. Tunaweza zungumza pia na huyu pia. Unaweza tueleza jinsi reli hii unahisi, una mawazo gani kuhusu mradi huu wa SGR?
Mimi kwa majina naitwa Waki Jarongo kutoka Voi, Taita Taveta County. Mimi ni mwanabiashara ya Voi Town, na nashukuru sana kwa sababu hii mambo imekuwa mambo mazuri kwa hii serikali ya Jubilee. Tunawapongeza Bwana Rais Uhuru Kenyatta kwa hii maendeleo hii tunaona, kwa sababu hawa watoto wengi wa Kenya wote kwa ujumla watapata makazi kwa hii mambo ya hii reli. Tunashukuru sana kwa sababu ile kwa kitambo ilikuwa inanyanyasa wananchi, kwa sababu bei ilikuwa juu na ndani haikuwa sawa. Tunaamini hii reli hii SGR itakuwa sawa kama wananchi wamefurahi, kwa sababu hii ni kama ndege itakuwa inakuwa ya chini. Sasa ya pili, tunaomba Bwana Rais hii bei iwe sawa, ipunguzie wananchi kidogo, ndio wapate hii SGR wapate kupata makastoma wengi ya kusafiri.
Asante sana. Tunaweza pata kusikiza pia mmoja wa wakazi wa Voi. Tueleze jinsi unahisi kuhusu mradi huu.
Sawa. Mimi kwa jina naitwa Lucia Mwakio. Mimi ni mama na ni kiongozi wa kina mama na chama changu ni Jubilee. Kusema kweli nimeshukuru sana Rais Uhuru Kenyatta kwa kutuletea ino reli. Tumekuwa na shida sana ya usafiri. Tumekuwa hata tukilala barabarani. Lakini kwa kuwa tumeletewa reli tumefurahi sana, tumeshukuru na najua kutakuwa na biashara nyingi Voi kutokana na hii reli. Kwa hivyo naomba Mwenyezi Mungu ambariki Rais Kenyatta, ampe umri mrefu. Asanteni.
Definitely, Zawadi, as you can hear, is that there's a lot of excitement as far as this project is concerned. And for those who've not visited Voi in a while, you actually need to visit. The town has really transformed, and the locals here are really hoping that through this station and of course through SGR as a whole, that there'll be more developments. And before we get back to, maybe we can get one more comment from this gentleman. Unaweza jina lako?
Mimi naitwa Richard Ndongochi. Mimi mkaji wa Voi.
Na mawazo gani kuhusu mradi huu wa SGR?
Tumefurahi sana, imepatia vijana wengi kazi hapa Taita Taveta. Kitu ya pili, tungemwambia rais awe mkazo wenyeji wa Taita Taveta ambao wenyeji wa Taita Taveta na ambao wamezaliwa hapa Taita Taveta. Lakini sisi tunashangaa watu wa kutoka juu Nairobi wakuja kuandika kazi hapa. Na wenyeji wako hapa wamesoma lakini tunasikia wamebaguliwa. Sisi tunaomba rais angalie mkazo wenyeji wa Taita Taveta wapate ajira kwa sababu reli imepitia hapa Taita Taveta. Tunashangaa watu kutoka Nairobi na wanakuja kuandika kazi hapa. Tutakuaje? Na sisi tumeamua sisi tuko kwa Jubilee.
Sawa. Definitely, Zawadi, of course, as we await the train to arrive here in Voi, of course, of locals, as you hear, there's a lot of diverse perceptions towards the whole rail, and of course there are those who are saying that, of course, now that the rail is passing through Voi, definitely they're hoping that they'll be able to get jobs, and of course at the end of the day the train itself and the project as a whole is meant to give employment, and of course there's a lot of perceptions about the SGR, but mostly the community is quite excited about the train and of course the station and the project as a whole, considering the amount of investment opportunities that it has provided. Maybe lastly we can get a final comment from this wonderful lady. Tueleze jina lako na unahisi vipi kuhusu mradi huu?
Kwa jina langu naitwa mchungaji Florentina Mwamela, ni pastor hapa Voi, na mimi nimezaliwa sehemu za Mgamboni, na mimi niko hapa karibu na reli kabisa. Na kwa sababu ninafurahia kwa sababu mimi ni mzaliwa na tunaona kwamba Mungu amefanya kitu akatuletea maendeleo hapa Voi. Kwa hivyo tunazidi kufurahia sana kwa sababu tunaona kwamba kwa reli hii imeleta maendeleo. Hata tunaona kwamba kijiji chetu mali tuko hapa Msambweni, tunaona kwamba kinaanza kubadilika. Tunaona kwamba maendeleo yameanza, manyumba mazuri, hata matajiri wanaanza kukimbilia upande huu kwa sababu vile yani Mungu amefanya na amemtumia rais wetu kwamba atuletee maendeleo kama haya. Vitu ambavyo hatukuvitarajia, tunaviona vitu vipya ambavyo vimekuja katika Voi hii yetu. Kwa hivyo na pia tunashukuru kwa sababu tunajua kwamba Mungu atasaidia watoto wetu, vijana wetu wako nje wengi. Tunajua kwamba watapata ujira, watapata kazi na tutaona maendeleo sana katika nchi yetu.
Definitely, Mudibo, those are the comments from just a few of the Kenyans who are here, especially residents of Voi. And as we wait for the train to come, residents are quite excited for the president to come to officially open this station. And as we've heard, there are a lot of expectation. Once this station is opened, a lot of locals expect for them to get employed and of course to bring out employment opportunities and attract investors in different sectors to come and invest here now that there is sufficient transport. Back to you, Mudibo, in studio.
Well, thank you very much, Mercy Milanoi, and we appreciate you for that update. And I'm just wondering, at the Voi station, do we have passengers that are on standby to board the train from Mombasa?
Nchini Kenya tutaenda kusimama juu, tupige vigelegele, shangwe, nderemo na vifijo tukiweza kumkaribisha. Anapofika hapa atakuja direct mpaka hapa juu ya jukwaa akapate kutuongelesha.
Yes, definitely, yes. Oh, yes.
wakuwa watulivu sana.
Yes, Mudiba, definitely,
Kwa
yes.
miaka yote
There are passengers who are
ile
waiting to
tangu
board the
Kenya
train
izaliwe.
once it gets here.
Bila kuwa
But
na
for now,
standard
most of the
Kenya
activities
Railways.
have been put aside
Hadi sasa leo hii
for the
tarehe
launch.
31
But once the launch
tukiwa
is done, once the
tunashuhudia
president comes and officially
standard
opens
Kenya
the
Railway
train,
ikiwa
the
inafunguliwa
station,
rasmi,
then
na kituo
normal
chetu
activities will be
cha
able to
Voi
continue.
kikiwa kimoja
From
wapo
inside, we saw the
vile
board that
vituo
have given a notification that
vitakavyofunguliwa
the
siku ya leo
services will be
rasmi,
suspended
kwa
for the
kukata
better part of the
upepo
day
ulioko pale
until in the
nyuma.
evening,
Basi
when
kuanzia
they will be
leo,
able now to
kuanzia
resume
sasa,
to
kila
now
mmoja
ferry passengers to
ako na
and
uhuru
from Nairobi,
wa kuweza
Mombasa,
kusafiri
and of course
kutumia
now this
standard
station will be
gauge
able to
railway.
be used
In the
effectively.
meantime,
But for now,
ningeomba,
there are passengers, but for now they're
bango
waiting for the president first to come and
tuelekeze
officially open this
tukikaribia.
particular station.
Tutakuwa tunaongea na nyinyi. Tafadhali.
Mercy, we heard the president mention during his speech that from Mombasa to Nairobi, it's going to cost no more than 700 shillings. Have you been able to speak to the officials in Voi? I'm just wondering how much it's going to cost. From Voi to Nairobi, and probably how many times a day are we going to see the train come by or come through from Voi to Nairobi?
As of now, as it stands, is that there'll be two trains that will be coming from Nairobi to Mombasa, and of course Mombasa to Nairobi. And of course now with those two trains, one will be express to Nairobi from Mombasa, and the other one will be now making stops to stations such as Voi. As of now, from what we've been told from the people on the ground from Kenya Railways, is that the fares will be fair, but they've not really stated what amount. But from what we've heard is that it will be at least half the price of the stated fare from Nairobi to Mombasa and back. But from now, yes, the fares are yet to be released officially, but they said it will be way lower than what people normally pay even for buses.
Lastly, Mercy, just before I let you go, in my view, the SGR is a double-edged sword, and I'm talking about the impact for businesses. We have a lot of transportation going on the road. We have investments running into billions of shillings or hundreds of millions for individuals, and we will see this move to the SGR. Have you been able to speak to any transporters, road transporters, to get to understand their fears, if you may?
Definitely, Mujibo, there are a lot of fears, especially from the transport sector, considering that they were the main mode of transportation, especially of cargo, from Mombasa to Nairobi. But from those that we spoke to have stated that they'll now have to re-strategize on how they can be able to still keep up with their business. But it's a disruption that they least expected. But initially, even when the project was initially launched, even for construction, many thought that it will not come through. But now once this thing actually has become a reality, there are a lot of fears as far as the operations and of course the businesses that they use for their clients. Considering that most clients will consider as the SGR cargo as compared to the trucks. But for now it's a lot of boardroom meetings and re-strategizing the businesses to ensure they also don't lose out, and also know how also they can also plug in and know how they can be able to ferry now goods from the stations to the different clients all over the country.
Very much, Mercy Milanoi, coming to us live from Voi, and I could hear some beautiful rendition in your background. I hope you will be joining in to have some dance as you wait for the president. Thank you, Mercy. That was Mercy Milanoi coming to us from Voi. And just before we go back to this discussion, and I'm speaking to Lucy Mushoki, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Agricultural and Industry Alliance, also a Director at the Micro and Small Enterprises Authority, that is MSEA, and also the Chairperson of the agricultural sector, and I'm talking about the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We will be speaking to her shortly, and I just want us before then to take a comparison of what used to be the Lunatic Express and the SGR. And on the 30th of May, the first SGR train made its maiden trip. And I'm talking about the cargo train, heralding a new dawn in Kenya's railway transport. Now, as the new track replaces the Lunatic Express that was constructed more than a century ago, starting Today, or earlier in the week, we have been looking at a series of stories that are featuring reports of this new dawn. The first of all, and we take you through for the last ride of the Lunatic Express as we compare with what to expect in as far as what has been christened the Madaraka Express, whose foundation President Kenyatta just laid ground in November of 2013. Let's have that report by Faisal Ahmed. Well, I understand we're trying to get through to that report. We'll take it when we find it. But before then, Lucy, you just heard about the area, Voi, that is now become very vibrant once again. We see a lot of businesses going on, particularly between traders in Taita Taveta County and the neighboring Tanzania. We're looking at fruit importation, exportation. This is going to be vibrant. And we have seen businesses, particularly small businesses who you represent, not getting so much margins because of the costs that are associated with road transport. Just how does this make you feel as someone that is in charge of the agriculture sector at the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry?
First, obviously, and I'll say it again and I'll repeat again, this is really exciting to me. As I said before, a country can only be transformed economically when it's lower, the people below the pyramid are able to make it, in business, and they're able to feed themselves. You know, we cannot continue just growing food, eating, and not trading. And the lack of transportation has been a big it has really been strange in the sense that when I look at what I've been seeing, and when you ask from the ground, what really are the issues? Because you give this trader, you give the farmers the seeds, you're able to support them with subsidized seeds and fertilizer, but yes, they get some good yield, even if not the best, but at least it's good enough. But the costs have been overbearing, and this is really timely, because this is a time when Africa is refocusing itself on agribusiness. We are not just talking of agriculture, we're talking of moving away from agriculture to agribusiness. And the agribusiness is what will transform Kenya and Africa as a whole. First and foremost, I'm looking at, you've just mentioned about the intertrade. We have talked again and again how Africa can trade with one another. We actually don't need the export markets. We can trade within ourselves. And the biggest market is in Africa, it's not in Europe. And if we start now opening this trade between the countries, I can assure you this is where now transformation in Africa will be achieved. You've just talked about opening to Tanzania. I am seeing we are going to link it to Burundi, to Rwanda, to Uganda. This is something big. This is not something small. And frankly speaking, we have been discussing how the population of Africa. What is the population of Africa? What are we expecting? The population of Africa by the year 2020 is doubling. We are going to be the biggest population in the whole world. All these people need to be fed. So where is the business? It's in the food industry. So I am seeing these coming in the right time. Let's start doing precision, what we call precision farming. Precision farming means, you're farming with the modern technologies, and the establishment of the special economic zones is a big plus, in the sense that these small businesses that I represent are going to be the beneficiary who will work around. They'll be able to access the technologies. They'll be clustered around those special economic zones.
Now, talking about clustering these businesses, currently we do not, most of the subsistence farmers and small businesses for that matter do not have the capacity to grow products or produce products that are in adequate quantities to allow transportation in bulk. So then we are looking at a possibility of a need to collaborate with fellow farmers or businesses, put together your wares, and then you're able to transport as one unit. How is this organization taking place? Because I believe we should already be seeing some form of organization towards that respect.
I'm happy that you have talked about this subject, because if you look at one of the biggest problems in agribusiness development in Kenya and in Africa as a whole, is that the silos, working in different, you're not integrated, and the farmers not being able to produce enough. The reason why they're not producing enough is because there's no that coordination. The fact that they don't receive the seeds, the fertilizer at the right time for them to be able to produce the right quantities and the right standards, this is also a big issue. But if you're able to support them where they are able to, through the special economic zone, that's what we expect to achieve, that these, the sellers or the traders of the farm inputs are able to reach the smallholder farmers at a nearer, very near, in a near way than where it has been. You get the farmers receiving the fertilizer when the rains have already set off. So once this is looked at, and the farmers are able to produce enough, and you have clustered them, they are able to produce enough, then we are going to see our corporate sectors will be able now to rely on our smallholder farmers to deliver the produce for them to process. Today, if you ask majority of our big corporates, where are they getting their raw materials from? They're actually importing. First and foremost is because they don't get enough. So somehow they have found you can get from Malaysia, you can get from other Asian countries at a cheaper price. And then they also realize that the standards, nobody is taking care of standards. So these special economic zones, those are the issues that they'll be addressing. The issues of ensuring the standards are met. At the same time, if you think at why the corporates are not even buying from these smallholder farmers, it's the way they are scattered everywhere. So it becomes very expensive for them. And
these are some of the things that I believe the authority is working on. Now we can get those live pictures on your screen inside the train. The train is moving at no less than 100 kilometers per hour, by the way, and that is why you can hardly see images outside the window. But you can see those are some of Kenyan journalists and other passengers in the train. We try to get this live, and therefore there could be moments when there is some hitch, where you can hardly see some clear pictures, but bear with us. We'll keep bringing those live pictures to you. Now, I was just talking about the Medium and Small Enterprises Authority that was is supposed to be working on modalities to create small industries or those clusters across the various regions of Kenya. And so far, what is the process? How far has the process gone?
Well, so much is happening. One thing that we are short of in this country is information. Many people don't know what is going on. A lot is happening, but there is no clear dissemination of information. What I know currently, for instance, when I look at the aquaculture, there's a lot that is happening in the development of the aquaculture sector, and farmers are being clustered to produce. The Europeans have come here and they've given us a green light. They want to import from us. They want to import the fish from us. When it comes to the leather industry, when it comes to the beef, I have seen the Ministry of Industrialization putting a lot of effort in the leather and the meat, and also the cotton. I want to tell you something that we are doing. We have just been in a retreat a few weeks ago, where we brought all the stakeholders working in the cotton value chain. And what we have done is everyone is contributing. You put everyone on the table, from the Rivertex, who is buying the cloth, from other GINAs who are buying the cotton from the farmers, from the AFA, the Fiber Directorate, who are dealing with the issues of policies, and the farmers and the county government. These and the financiers, the Agricultural Finance Corporation. So we have brought them together, and we are putting a very strong document of how we are going to revamp the whole of the cotton industrialization in this country. So everybody in that cluster for cotton is on the table, and everybody is addressing what area they are going to contribute. This is what is happening right now as we talk. Yeah. As we see the things that are happening out there, if you look at the EPZ, the Buy Kenya, even now one is going to happen from tomorrow in Nyeri after the Madaraka Day. They've just come from coast, something like that has happened. And you can see Kenyans are eager to buy what is theirs. They are flocking in numbers to buy these. So this tells you that people are starting to align themselves. They understand, these smallholders, now there is a system taking place, a system shaping up. To me, this is what we call clustering. And to me, this is where we should have started from on onset. I know that nothing is achieved overnight, and this calls for everybody. Participation, and everybody has to do something about it. There's nobody, we cannot say this is the role of opposition or the government. No, it's everybody together. We are working with this. It doesn't matter where you belong. For instance, the cotton textile industry will be revamped in the Western Kenya. We have already developed a very good concept along with the Ministry of Industrialization, Agriculture, and also land and irrigation, water and irrigation. So we are looking at how we revamp the Western Cotton Development Program, and we have already been at Lamu, where there is going to be a very big investment on the Lamu Cotton Industrial Park. We've also been to Tana River, and there we've already organized the farmers. We already did some trials on a variety of hybrid seed for cotton sold by Amiran, and we are soon going to adopt the BT cotton, which gives a higher yield of cotton, and other farmers are very excited. I saw them planting, so long as you assure them of the market and the issue. I saw Meru Ginnery assuring them they'll come all the way from Meru to buy from them. When tomorrow we also need to have a GINA in place in that area. So this is how we are seeing ourselves starting organizing, and so much, as I mentioned to you, is really happening. And that's just a mention of one sector, the cotton. There are others also happening in different crops.
Well, very interesting developments happening there. We're trying to get you the images from the train that is carrying the president and his deputy, and of course the first lady, and there you have the images on your screen. Those are some of the Kenyan journalists that accompanied the president on the maiden trip from Mombasa. We are not yet in Mariakani, but I think in a couple of minutes we will be, and the train is going to make a stopover. We're trying to also get images from the outside on the road. You can see those using road transport and the experience and just how fast the train is moving. And that is really what we are talking about, and what was promised, 120 kilometers per hour in the train. That is something that is going to cut down significantly on the costs associated with transportation and the movement. The disadvantages that come with road transport, you understand, issues to do with traffic jams, issues to do with probably roads not in so good conditions, that are potholes on the road, and that slows movement at some point when there's so much rain. But you know what, when it comes to the SGR, there is no pothole. I know that is obvious, but that again makes movement very seamless, and we expect and we hope that this is going to indeed transform this nation, and that is now a challenge to businesses and of course business people to be able to take up the opportunities and challenges, because the existence, for instance, of the SGR cargo freight or freight services in as far as the train is concerned, without adequate cargo being moved, then will defeat logic. However, we expect that there's going to be considerable action to that effect. We'll also be giving you details of how much it's going to cost you to transport your goods on the train. Our reporters are on the ground gathering that information from the authorities and of course the officers in charge. We already know that the economy class of the SGR train will require you to pay just no more than 700 shillings for a single trip, a one-way Mombasa-Nairobi or vice versa. And we also be looking at the business class. The business class, I understand, might hit to close to 3,000 shillings. And when it comes to business class, you understand you will have adequate facilities. We're talking about washrooms in the train, you're talking about meals in the train, you're talking about some form of comfort where you can take a nap, there is a makeshift bed for you, and all that manner of comfort that you can imagine in your home that is going to have that experience in the train. And therefore the prices go towards the compensation of the food and of course the services and the space that is captured in providing that comfort for a single passenger. We now want to also inform you that Faisal Ahmed is on standby. We'll be going to Faisal in not long from now. Faisal is in Mtito Andei, and he's also right there on standby waiting for the president. And also Milanoi will be giving us an update of what is transpiring so far, particularly when the president gets to Voi. The president is currently almost in Mariakani, if not yet in Mariakani. We'll give you that piece of information shortly. But before then, again, we'll be taking stories, giving you a comparison of what the experience was like. And Faisal Ahmed took a ride in the Lunatic Express. The Lunatic Express is the train that we have been seeing just before today, that was established over a century ago in the late 1980s, in the later 80s or early 90s, sorry for that. And we'll take that report once it's ready on the direction of my director. And I just want to again bring you back to this discussion, Lucy. Let's talk about the impact this is going to have in terms of the region. We saw the East African community at some point coming together, wanting to do the SGR as a unit, that is Kenya, Uganda and Rwanda. But then again, along the way, there was a shift of focus, and the other two nations, I think, opted for an alternative route through Tanzania, which is not yet in effect. Do you think this is, or this was a massive investment that might not eventually turn around profits for Kenya in the anticipated duration of time, as it were, at the beginning?
Well, first, I was enjoying. I was wishing I'm inside there. Now, let me tell you this, what I'm thinking. I heard, and I don't know, this is something I heard, that Ugandans, Yoweri Museveni, is really waiting for this SGR to hit Kisumu so that it can move to Uganda. But there's something about the deal that was signed between Kenya and Ethiopia. If you think about it, Ethiopia has how many, what's the population of Ethiopia? It's more than the whole of East Africa combined. So to me, I don't see any loss here. I see opportunities. And in fact, luckily enough, the Ethiopians and the Kenyans have started to trade. I don't know whether you're aware of that. They have opened up, and there's so much happening between these two countries. So with the SGR, you can imagine how much we are going to trade with the Ethiopians. And I have been to Ethiopia many, many times. Ethiopians need to be fed by Kenyans. I think, and I believe, that is a market for us. But we need to be quite competitive. So with this SGR, I'm looking at the competitiveness. How are we going to produce good food, sweet, nice food, Kenyan food? We have the best food, eh? I hope you know that. and because why I'm saying that is because I see that at times our Kenyans who live in Ethiopia coming to buy food here in Kenya, because our food is really has a, like I mentioned earlier on about our mango being the sweetest. So what I'm seeing here is a lot of trade happening between us and Ethiopia, but I believe it is all not lost between us and our East African community. Yes.
Well, again, we have your pictures right there. That is a live video from the train, inside the train, giving us an experience of its kind. We, again, looking at our reporter, Franklin Masharia, that is in that particular train, also accompanying President Kenyatta. We earlier saw Brenda Kerubo talk to us live from the venue of the launch or the commissioning of the passenger train. We are yet to get details of exactly where this train is, and I hope we can get those details so we can relay them live to you. But that is around, we're still within the coast region, probably moving through, that is Kilifi County, through to Kwale County in areas of Mariakani. And once the president makes his first stop, we will be giving you an update if there is a change of plan from the anticipated stop in Mariakani to an initial stop in Voi. We'll give you those details once we get information. However, that is what you can see there is what we are experiencing. A very interesting experience, I must say, for the journalists and, of course, the first passengers on this maiden trip coming through live to you. And we also be looking at some of the testimonials, the experience this particular Kenyans have for the very first time once we're able to get it. And therefore, let's get to hear from Masharia. Over to you, Masharia.
We continue to make our trip from Mombasa through Mariakani, going all the way to Voi. Now we are headed to Voi. This being a trip which we expect that from Nairobi, from Mombasa to Nairobi will take about 4.5 hours, but the trip may be a bit, it may take a little more time because of a few stopovers which we are taking. It's an exciting trip. This coach, we are just made up of about 20 journalists. This train actually left Mombasa earlier before the other train that is carrying the president and the other dignitaries, and therefore we hope that we are going to get to Nairobi earlier than the president. Of course, a big achievement for the Kenyan government, a big achievement for the Kenyan people, this being the only SGR train in the East Africa region for now. Uganda and Rwanda waiting for the completion of this SGR railway line in Kenya so that they can be able to construct theirs, and it's a railway line which is going to connect the East Africa region. It has been an exciting day actually for President Uhuru Kenyatta this morning as he launched the inaugural passenger train. As you can see outside here, very beautiful scenery. You don't have the normal traffic that you have on Mombasa Road when you are moving from Mombasa to Nairobi or Nairobi to Mombasa. People, passengers here are able to enjoy the countryside view. I think on the other side you can see Mombasa Road. I hope my cameraman will be able to get that. trucks moving all the way from Nairobi to Mombasa, all of course at a very slower pace as you compare to this train, which is moving at almost a speed of a maximum speed of 120 kilometers per hour. On that side, you can see journalists, they are able to work. There are work tables here. They are able to continue filing their stories as they continue with their journey to ensure that Kenyans and indeed the world is able to receive all the news it needs at this point. And as it happens, the network is not very stable because of the terrain of this place, but there are places where there is internet, and that's why we are able to stream to you live pictures of this trip.
Well, we just lost Macharia. We lost the signal right there. Like he mentioned to you, he's on transit, and I must make the correction. This is not the train that the president boarded during departure a couple of minutes ago. This was an earlier train that was let go immediately before the president commissioned, and therefore they must probably be heading closer to Voi, unlike the other train that is trailing them, that is not yet in Mariakani, or probably is in Mariakani, but because of the network issues, we are unable to get those live feeds from the train that is carrying or ferrying the president. However, Franklin Macharia will be giving us an update of what is happening, and that was just a glimpse of what is the experience he is having so far through the Savo area. And if you're familiar with this route, then you will agree with me. This is a very interesting journey because you're able to go through the Savo National Park. You're able to see these animals live and without a cost. I want us to now move on to Mtito Andei. In Mtito Andei, Faisal Ahmed is on standby. Faisal, if you can hear me, tell us what the experience is like. How are the wananchi expectations in as far as the SGR train is concerned? Over to you, Faisal.
Thank you very much, Zawadi. It's a hot and dusty day, but a lot of people have turned up for this inaugural launch of the Standard Gauge Railway, and they're very excited about this particular project. Many of them are optimistic that this project will bring them prosperity. If you know, Mtito Andei is the 5th station from Mombasa, and it's made its name as a station, as a place where, a small town where people who travel from Mombasa to Nairobi and from Nairobi to Mombasa make stops to refresh themselves and all that. And there's a bit of worry among some of the people that I've talked to in terms of the truckers who use this particular town as a resting place, a place to refresh, and also where they can eat food. They're worrying about if 40%, their main worry is if 40% of the containers are taken off the road and put on the rail, how will they survive? That is one of their worries, and I've spoken to some of the local leaders who are also optimistic about the opportunities that will come with the Standard Gauge Railway. And as you can see, maybe behind me, everything is set. Entertainments are currently ongoing. We are waiting for the president. I was informed that he left Mombasa not too long ago, and he will make his stop at Mariakani, and then later on at Voi, where my colleague Massimiliano is there. And then later on in the day, he'll stop here at Mtito Andei station, which, as I mentioned earlier, is the 5th station from Mombasa. And now the crowd is slowly becoming bigger in anticipation of the president and his speech, and it's more or less turning into a political event of some sorts. Even the independent electoral body of the country, IEBC, has come on board to urge some of the citizens to go and verify if they are registered voters, taking the opportunity that all these people are gathered in this particular place. Now, we expect the president here anytime after he leaves the Voi station. People are patiently waiting for him. Entertainments are going on, and they're optimistic that with this new railway, new opportunities will come their way, and it will open up this particular stretch of the entire stretch of the Nairobi-Mombasa highway, what used to be the what still is the Nairobi-Mombasa highway, and it will bring more prosperity to them and their offsprings later on in life. I spoke to some of the people. They're optimistic. Some are not really sure about what this rail holds, but we'll just see what happens. But currently everything seems to be smooth. The station is ready. The ribbon that the president is to cut has already been prepared, and all we are waiting for right now is the arrival of the president so that he can officially launch the station and address the people. Over to you, Zawadi.
Faisal, for that latest update. We appreciate and we hope you stand through the heat of the moment or the heat of the day until the president comes through. Now that was Faisal Ahmed is coming to us, or was coming to us live from Mtito and Day, giving us the live updates from that area, and the president is expected to make a stop over in Mtito and Day later in the day and make a public address also. We expect the president will be making a public address in Voi also. In Mariakani, we are unlikely to get those pictures because of the movement, which is obviously and also restricted because of the fast movement of the train in a bid to not be caught off guard in as far as time is concerned, because there are numerous stopovers. We have precisely about 7 stopovers from Mombasa to Nairobi, and just if we can have those graphics just to indicate to you how the train will be moving from station to station shortly. I think my director will be giving us those images live, and then we'll be also giving you details or a detailed analysis of what that means. And later on in the day, again, we'll have this discussion go on. We're also trying to still get in touch with Franklin Masharia, who is on transit. Franklin is just about Voi or closer to Voi, and I think in a couple of minutes, half an hour or so, he will be in Voi and will be giving us some detailed information. Now, if you're joining us right now, some few details for you to know that the president officially did commission the freight train, the SGR freight train yesterday, and today did commission the passenger train and directed the economy class will cost no more than 700 shillings from Mombasa to Voi. Now, if you've been using road transport, I'm talking about bus, then there are instances you pay more than 2,000 shillings for a bus from Nairobi or Mombasa to Nairobi and vice versa. And therefore, this is going to be a real game changer. And probably bus companies are now already rethinking on how they're going to remodel their businesses to be able to stay afloat. Otherwise, then all these passengers are going to be taken away. However, we also had the president make a stern warning against any form of vandalism on the track. We saw days before today in Mariakani, we had a section of the railway line that had been tampered with and had been destroyed. It has already been fixed, but the president made a stern warning and said that will now become the most expensive sin for any Kenyan. Today, the most expensive sin is robbery with violence. However, any form of vandalism on the railway line, that is the SGR, is now a capital offense that will attract a death penalty. The president, since he took power, has never assented to any form of death penalty, but has instead directed that anyone who has been charged for any death penalty instead serve a life sentence. However, he has committed publicly that anyone that will be found culpable of vandalism, and if those that were responsible for the vandalism will be brought to book, then they will face a death penalty. So therefore, stand warned. This is going to be seen as an act of economic sabotage if you intend to make any form of interference with the current line. It has cost Kenya at least 327 billion shillings to construct the 480 kilometers worth of railway, that is the standard gauge railway line, and of course including the cargo, the train itself, the two trains that will be transporting people and cargo. We have also seen the Kenyan government secure partnership, a collaborative partnership with the People's Republic of China, and that will see the extension of the standard gauge railway line not just to Naivasha but through to Kisumu and Busia County. Therefore, that is also going to be ongoing. The constructions are not stopping. They will continue until we get to Busia. Therefore, the standard gauge railway phase 2 project is currently underway. We have also been experiencing quite some challenges in as far as movement is concerned, I'm sure, particularly in as far as road transport to and from the railway stations. And today the President made a directive to the Ministry of Transport to construct a road from the Miritini railway terminus to Mombasa town to ensure that it is up to standard, and there will be a bus stage for particularly the PSV, the taxis, and any form of road transport that intends to dispatch Kenyans who want to board the train. We have also, we did experience yesterday the commissioning of the cargo train, and that has its main terminus in Portrees. Portrees is just across, that is in Mombasa, just next to the ocean, and at the port city of Mombasa, at the Mombasa port, that is the Kilindini port, for purposes of being able to dispatch all the goods that come through the port of Mombasa. And we will be keeping you informed once we get our feed from Franklin Masharia, and if my director can give us the reports that we had earlier mentioned in as far as the comparison between the Lunatic Express, which was the railway line or the service, the train service that we have been experiencing, and the standard gauge railway line. So we understand we will be getting that report shortly. But what is the social impact that is going to have, the social and economic impact the train is going to have, all the standard gauge railway train is going to have? We have Maya Hakawa with our report.
They also have the comfort of being able to move their seats back, move forward, and so on and so forth. If we go on this way, it's actually towards the economy class, which has about 6 seats at once. We can see that we have quite heavy surveillance here and a lot of security. We're expecting about 1,200 people. Remember that we have about 5 trains daily, and I have a few passengers over here who actually wanted to witness this day. So let's just have a feel of what they have to say, what this day means to them. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. You're really tall. How are you doing? What's your name?
Okay, I'm Matthew Correr, Youth President, Kericho County. I'm privileged to be part of those who will be boarding this train for the first time after 122 years when we were using another rail. Today I'm happy and I congratulate Kenyans for waiting for this train for the last 3 years, and it has come to a true, and we wish that all the other young people they can do business. They can use the opportunity to of SGR to do business. And
you say that you're from K24 County, so you came all the way to Mombasa to witness this day. What does this day mean to you?
Yeah, this is an historic day for me. I think I'm among the few guys who were selected to come and join President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President during the launch. And I know that we'll be boarding this train to Nairobi together with the President and the Deputy President and all other government officials. And that is a very wonderful moment. Remember that tomorrow being a Madaraka Day, I know this will be this will be a topic for Kenyans that they will be talking. It is an historic. It is historic. At the end of the day, we want to urge all Kenyans. It is an illusionary. Let's preach peace, unity among ourselves. Thank you so much.
All right, let me get another feel from you. Hi, sir. What's your name and where are you from?
My name is Kalia Thomas from West Pokot County, the North Rift County.
And tell me, what do you think of the train so far? You've had a chance to look at it from the outside. Have you been inside?
I've never been inside, but I can see through the windows the train is so much space. It is something which has made a Kenyan to come and witness the historical thing which has never been had in this Kenya. And I want to thank the Honorable President of the Republic of Kenya and his Deputy President, Honorable William Samoei Ruto, for the privileged economy that is giving to Kenyans and all the nation of the world, that the economy will grow within Africa, within Kenya, especially Kenya. It's an historic thing.
So how often do you visit Mombasa? And for you, do you feel that this is more affordable than the usual form of transport?
To me, this is my third time being in Mombasa County, 001 County. And I want to time how many minutes or hours will I be using from Mombasa to Nairobi so that I can see the economy and also to manipulate my own economy so that whenever I'll be coming to Mombasa, I'll see which is the cheapest means of transport. And more so, to thank whoever who has brought this means of transport to Kenya so that Kenyans should know which is the cheapest way route to their own destination.
Well, that was Maya Hayakawa earlier in the day. Maya is also aboard the first train accompanying Franklin Macharia, and they are close to Voi right now, giving us a reaction of what the people think about the standard gauge railway line and particularly the transportation system. We'll be getting you details live from Voi once the president gets there. Now, the construction of the standard gauge railway has transformed the lives of many Kenyans either by default or design. The fact that more people and goods will be ferried on the SGR means a big relief. But the bigger burden was lifted off people's shoulders who got jobs from the rail. Besides the creation of jobs, the construction of the railway line had a silver lining in the form of a love story that was sealed with a ring. Sora Adam reports.
From safety officers to translation masters, the standard gauge railway has transformed the lives of several people within the country and abroad. Meet Nicholas Kirui and Wang Yahung, an interpreter and the deputy director of the 7 project management at the railway station. They have developed a cordial relationship since the commencement of the station. Nicholas helps Wang interpret technical terms to Kenyan workers.
Misunderstanding between the Chinese people and the local people. When translating, that's the biggest challenge.
Kenya is a beautiful country. Along the railway, you can see dense thicket, different wildlife and gorgeous scenery. I hope that one day I can be among the first group of passengers traveling from Nairobi to Mombasa by train once the rail will open.
As soon as the Mombasa-Nairobi standard gauge railway kicked off, Faris Ndungu began working as an on-site inspector. He normally patrols stations along the railway to protect both equipment and staff.
When you're going around, have to check.
Faris says cable theft is on the rise.
The most equipment that we usually take a lot of care is the copper cable. Copper cable here is being stolen